Hey there and welcome. It is good to have you with me today. Today we are starting right at the very beginning. This is a part of the very first lesson that I teach when I'm teaching the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. We're going to lay a foundation here. So I'm just going to ask you if you watch this, some of you are with me live, but if you are watching this on the recording, take a minute to like the video, drop a comment, share the video with someone who you know would be interested in it, and subscribe to my channel. Let's get these videos visible to a lot more people. All right, let's dive in. There are many different types of iridology around right now, and there's many different iridology philosophies. Our focus today is specifically the up-to-date, scientifically validated version that is known as constitutional iridology. I'm going to ask you to also play with me in the chat box. When I ask for responses, please play with me there, because the more you play with me in the chat box, the more you interact with me, the more you're going to get out of me today. So I'm going to hop right in and show you a little bit of what iridology is capable of, and then we'll backtrack and do some foundational stuff. Does that sound okay? If that sounds good, give me a thumbs up or give me an okay in the chat box. We got one raised hand. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Yana. I hope that's how we say your name. Tiffany, excellent. Thank you for that. Superb. Okay. This is one of my clients. She's been a client of mine for about 25 years. She and her husband started coming to me before they had their children. I saw them through getting ready to conceive. I saw them through the 2 pregnancies, through breastfeeding issues, through a divorce, right? And so now and my clients fade in and out. They'll come in, feel great, then they'll disappear because they're feeling great. Then they'll slip and then won't do their homework. And then they start to fall apart again. So they come back in. We get them feeling good, few appointments, and they're in and out. And I know that's just how it goes. So it doesn't bother me at all that they do that. So when we see this, we need to remember that the eyes teach us about their inherent predisposition. So physically and emotionally, but we're going to focus on physical today. When we see this particular set of eyes, what we know is we've got questions we need to ask. We get information and the eyes teach us questions. So these eyes are what we call biliary eyes. They're not blue eyes. They're not brown eyes. She probably had a parent who had blue eyes and one who had brown eyes, or somewhere in the generations, there was a blue and a brown eye, and that's what she is the result of. We know that when we see this type of a constitution, and we're looking only at the color here, only at the color, not the fiber structure yet, only at the color, what we know is that we are going to see a greater predisposition towards things like liver issues, digestion, and blood sugar issues. So I want you to think of people you already know, where you look at their eyes and you might describe them as having hazel eyes, right? So they're not blue, they're not green, they're not brown. There might be a bit of green in there, but they're kind of that in between. Do you know anybody who you think has hazel eyes? If you do, give me hazel in the chat box. Give me hazel in the chat box. If you know someone who you think has those mixed eyes, they're not blue, they're not brown, there's something in between. Tiffany knows someone. Good job, Tiffany. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Maybe you've got hazel eyes. So this client came to me because she had a lot of stress. Things were not going well in her life, and she was gaining weight, and she really wanted to lose the weight. She also brought in some lab tests from her doctor that showed that she had elevated hemoglobin A1C and elevated cholesterol. Okay, so if you know your labs, you know that hemoglobin A1C is an indicator of prediabetes or being diabetic, full-blown type 2 diabetic, right? And often when we see the elevated hemoglobin A1C, we will also see elevated cholesterol. So when we see this person's eyes specifically, we're going to next look at her pupil size. They're a little bit on the large side. That tells us that she spends a lot of time in that sympathetic response method, right? That way. When you think of someone who responds from the sympathetic nervous system, what do you think of? Give it to me in the chat box. When you know someone responds as a sympathetic responder, high stress, absolutely, absolutely. What are some of the classic indicators we see of someone who is a sympathetic responder? So stress, high stress is a symptom, but what causes it? Or what are some other symptoms that we see here? Elevated cortisol, we can certainly see that. And good one, Yana, good one. Have you heard the term fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Have you heard that? Those are very common reactions for someone who is a sympathetic responder. We also know that because this person is biliary, she's not blue-eyed, she's not brown-eyed, she's biliary, that she is predisposed to having her liver run the show. Right now, that can show up as many things. What are some indications of the liver not behaving? What are some symptoms you would see? I'm having you dig into any anatomy and physiology background you've got. They might have poor detox. They might have skin issues. Yeah. Anything else? Anger issues. Tiffany, good one. Right? Anger. Yeah, absolutely, Yana. Totally. Right. So those are some. Now, the liver does over 500 different jobs. Right? So if it's messed up, it can mess up anything it wants to. So we might see immune issues. We might see blood symptoms. There might be some imbalances in her blood composition. We might see energy imbalances, as in her energy's up and down and up and down. We might see hormonal issues or allergies or digestive issues. Now, one of the things that we often see is that it's not uncommon for people with a biliary eye to also have the MTHFR defect. Do you know what MTHFR is? Methylation. Yes, Yana, good job, good job. And so we'll often see a methylation problem. And when you understand methylation, you understand if she's getting B vitamins that are not properly methylated, that can aggravate any emotional / mental health warps she may be experiencing, correct? As well as a whole lot of other things. We also have a central heterochromia. We've got a concentration of color, of pigment at the center of the eye. And that suggests that the liver wants to impact her digestive functions. All right, now again, going back into your anatomy and physiology, you understand how the liver impacts digestion and how it impacts the way we assimilate and utilize our nutrients. When we have any orange and liver in a biliary eye, we know we are looking at inherited liver and pancreatic tendencies. Not a guarantee that there will be a problem, but a strong suggestion that there could be. And when we see brown anywhere in the iris, again, that suggests a tendency towards liver imbalances. We also want to remember when we're doing this that we need to look at the whites of the eye, the sclerae. The blood vessels that are in the sclera are very responsive to imbalances in the body. The thicker and more bold a blood vessel is, the more long-standing, chronic, and probably degenerative the problem is. When we see blood vessels, the placement of the blood vessels tells us about organs that may be struggling right now. And so that's an important thing for us to be aware of. When we see blood vessels that are parallel to the limbus, and this is a little overexposed, so it's a little hard to see, but these blood vessels that are running fairly parallel to the limbus suggest that there could be a risk of circulatory impairment or blockage in the organs that correlate to that part of the sclera. So we can see a lot of things in an iris, and we see these, but then we need to ask questions, right? She was coming in because she was gaining weight. I'm not going to make a recommendation until I know what she's eating. What is her diet like? Is she taking any supplements or medications? Has she had any surgeries? I want to know, what is her lifestyle like? Does she get physical activity? Does she get enough sleep? What does she do to manage her stress? What does she do for fun and relaxation? When I understand all of that, then I can look at her eyes and I can then say, gaining weight, elevated hemoglobin A1C, elevated cholesterol. Now I understand what I need to do. And I'm going to need to increase her leafy greens. I'm going to need to encourage her to have about 30 grams of protein at every meal. And I'm going to have to spend some time reminding her of what those proteins look like. We are going to increase her low carbohydrate vegetables. And we are going to cut out the refined carbohydrates. Now, these are all things that she and I had talked about over the years, but you know how stress is. The more stressed we are, the more we tend to forget what we know. And the more we default to comfort foods, fast foods, things that don't add stress in the preparation. And so we had to go back and do a lot of reminding with her. We added omega-3 fatty acids to her diet. We added berberine because there were some indicators in her sclera that we can't see in these particular photos that told me that she was not handling her carbs, that she was definitely pushing towards an insulin resistant situation. I got her to also add some garden essence digestive enzymes because, again, her liver wants to impair her digestion. So we've got to support the digestion and support the liver, and the garden essence does all that. For those of you in the States, you would call garden essence, this is from one of my favorite herbal companies, you would call them Proaxine, right? We had her on this program and stayed in touch with her on a monthly basis for 3 months. By the end of 3 months, she went back to her doctor. All of her numbers were now coming in the normal range. We got her to be physically active, just go for a 20-minute walk after each meal. She also lost about 20 pounds. Now, in that 3 months, which is really remarkable, dietary changes, some supplements, and some daily physical activity. And then she fell off her program. There was another significant stress in her life. And all of her numbers slipped back to what they'd been. And then she had a heart attack. She survived. So that was a good thing, very good thing. And now we are working to get her back on track, right? We're looking at where's the stress? What can she do about it? We're looking at getting her back on her eating. She's a little reticent to add the supplements back in. She's on 9 different medications. The doctors have made her believe that if she stops any of these meds or reduces them or does anything with them other than exactly what they've said, she will die, which is very sad because she knows a lot about nutrition and a lot about herbs and a lot about vitamins. So we're going slowly. We're going at a pace that she can handle. And her eyes are telling us, they're reinforcing what we need to do. And we're starting with our food choices. We'll be adding more and more herbs to her program, but we're going to add them in the form of foods. We'll have her use more garlic in her cooking, for instance. We'll have her use more cayenne pepper in her cooking. We'll get her to incorporate the foods just as a part of her dietary lifestyle. Now, as I did that, did you notice I never said she's toxic? Did you notice I never said she needs a cleanse? Did you notice I never said she's got a congested liver? I never said her eyes look unhealthy, because none of those things can be seen through the eyes unless you're an eye doctor and you can assess health through the eyes that way. We can't possibly know all those things just from the eyes. We need to have a conversation with our client to understand what the symptoms are, what the person's already doing, what is the family predisposition here. We need context to do an iris analysis. So as we did that, I'm just going to ask you a little question here. How many of you already work with clients and maybe you do herbal recommendations or nutrition? If you do, just give me a note in the chat box here to let me know that you're already working with clients. You already make recommendations, maybe herbs, nutrition, maybe you've got some other things, essential oils. Maybe you do. Some of you do. Excellent. Those of you who don't do that yet, I want you to give me a no in the chat box. Tahima does, fantastic. Tiffany does excellent. Some of you don't, and that's okay. If you don't do that, do recommendations yet, if you're brand new to this, that's perfect. That's perfect. We all start somewhere, right? And this is an introduction for you. So I'm hoping you can see how using the eyes with this assessment helped me to be able to direct her more accurately in what we needed to do. Quick introduction of myself. I've been in the holistic health. Oh, I didn't update these. I've updated so many slides. I didn't update these. I actually have my current badges that go until January 2026 now, I believe it is. And so I am current. I promise I am. You can find me on the IPA website under instructors. I really am there. I've been in the holistic health industry for about 45 years now. This is what I did instead of finishing university to be an elementary school teacher. Over these last 4.5 decades, I have written many books that were self-published, self-distributed. None of them are available now, except for the Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology textbook, which is available to my students. But the books I've written have been on pregnancy health, children's health, general herbal studies, biokinesiology and color therapy. I've designed and taught courses to go with all of those books. Now, of course, I teach iridology using the International Iridology Practitioners Association curriculum, their outline, so that I can teach people how to be excellent iridologists. So stay with me to the end of today's workshop. We'll talk about the next upcoming go-around of dynamic iridology and give you some information about that course. I am a master herbalist and I am associated with the Alberta Herbalist Association. I'm also a trained nutrition professional associated with both the Canadian Association of Holistic Nutrition Pros and the Canadian Association of Natural Nutritional Practitioners. I've studied iridology under 8 different instructors, 3 different styles, a couple of different schools. I've done herbology through a couple of different schools, nutrition through a couple of different schools. And so that is the foundation that I bring to you as a teacher. I don't just teach iridology. I don't just teach iris markings. I teach the integration of iridology into whatever you do as a professional, and I help you integrate what you already do with iridology. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about the 5 questions that you came to get answers for today. What is iridology? Where did it come from? Why does it work? What can it teach us, and how should it be used? Now, if you've got other questions that you would like answers to, give them to me in the chat box. And if I can work them into the presentation today, I absolutely will. All righty, so what is iridology? The easy answer is iridology is the study of the iris of the eye. We're looking strictly at the colored part of the eye because that is the iris. Now, for those who might be new to this science, it's not iridology. It's not an iris. It's an iris. It is iridology. Constitutional iridology recognizes that certain iris traits always suggest a short list of specific health predispositions. What we see in an iris is inherited from up to 4 generations back. We cannot change or remove things that we see in the iris by doing cleanses or fasts or taking special supplements. This is the genetic framework. This shows us the genetic framework that our client has come to this life with, and it helps us to understand our client's physical health potentials and their emotional and personality tendencies as well. So as we look at this eye, for example, we've got fibers that are skittering crosswise in the eye. We're not going to move those. Those are set there just the way your fingerprint is genetically determined. On the computer screen that I'm looking at, and yours may show things a little differently, I see a bit of a yellowish tint to the fiber structure here. That's all genetically determined. That's all it is. It's genetically determined. And so we're not going to be able to wash that out. It doesn't mean she's toxic, but it does tell us what her underlying predispositions likely are. We can ask questions to find out if she's had problems in those directions or if there's a family history of problems in those directions. And if not, we can still recommend dietary and lifestyle things that will help to stall this off from becoming a current issue. Now, how would that be if, as you were working with your clients, you could see tendencies of things that had not yet become a problem, and you could teach your clients how to reduce the risk of those problems surfacing? It's great to see markers that teach us about what's going on right now, and we work with those a lot, like all the time. But it's also really important to work ahead. I love what Tiffany says here. She says prevention. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I love doing iridology with children, because I can teach the parents, especially with young children, I can teach the parents what I see and what it means. And then I can teach the parents about diet, about lifestyle, about particular needs this child has and will always have, that the parent could easily meet. Modern iridologists also add the study of the sclera to an iris assessment. So where the iris is genetic, the sclera is not. The sclera is, there are some things in the sclera that are genetically influenced. A lot of what we see in the sclera is very dynamic. It's what's going on now. So we see where there are challenges in the body now. We don't know exactly what they are, but we know where they are. And when we know where they are and where we dovetail that with anything we might see in the iris, and we dovetail that with symptoms, we can get a pretty good idea of what's going on and what we need to be suggesting for diet and lifestyle and supplements. Now, with these blood vessels, you know they're dynamic. If you've ever had a really good hard cry, and then you've gone into the bathroom to look in the mirror and splash cool water on your face, and you've noticed your eyes are incredibly bloodshot, and you're thinking, I can't go out looking like this, right? So you just stay there for a few minutes, you give yourself 5 or 10 minutes, a little more cool water, and things settle down, right? And that's just simply a reaction to all of that, those tears in the eyes and the way that changes the chemistry of the surface of the eye. Well, when we're looking at these blood vessels, we are seeing changes in the chemistry and in the performance of tissues in the body as well. So again, these can show us preclinical hotspots. They can show us where something is brewing that is not even symptomatic yet. So this can be very, very helpful if we're working with clients that, I have clients that come in and say, I feel good, but I think I could feel great. Alrighty then, where do I start? I go to the sclera and I go to the family history, right? That tells me where the inherited weak links are. So where did iridology come from? It's not a new invention. There's been evidence of it from Egypt, India, China, and Greece from millennia ago. It's rooted in those ancient cultures. Now, we know that science evolves. I'm not going to say follow the science. That has such a bad connotation anymore. Science is actually the art of asking questions. It's like we used to think, well, we didn't. Years ago, centuries ago, they used to think the earth was flat, right? And somebody asked a question of, if I can see the tip of a sail from a sailing ship coming up, rising, well, that wouldn't happen if the earth was flat. I wonder if the earth is round. So ask the questions and then do the research to find the answer. So we now know, most of us know, that the earth is round. Some of us still believe the earth is flat, and that's fine. They just have not kept up with the actual research. But we know that with the right questions, all science evolves. All science evolves. So when you've got a 3-year-old who's asking, I mean, why and what and how and why again? That child is actually practicing very good science. And that's what we need to do with our clients is practice really good science. So what we know about iridology is that what was once embraced as truth, there's a lot that was once embraced as truth, even within iridology in the past 200 years. And through research, much of it has been disproven. And the new information is what we're working with now. And that's what we want. We want to let go of the old stuff. How many of you have heard the owl story when it comes to iridology? If you have, just give me the word owl in the chat box. Let's talk about the owl story. Have you heard this? Little boy, 11-year-old named Ignaz von Petschle. It's reported he found or caught an owl that had a broken leg or wing, was able to trap this animal, take it home, and nurse it back to health. The story goes that he saw in the owl's eye, when he caught it, a black line in the owl iris, and that as the iris healed, or as the limb healed, the iris healed as well. So I have a lot of questions about this, a lot. The first one is, how did he get a wild owl, a bird of prey, to sit still? The next one is, we know that the structure of an owl iris is very different from a human iris, so we can't extrapolate from the owl to the human. It doesn't exist. If there had been a black line here, it would have meant there was a genuine split in the iris, and Ignaz was looking into the chamber of the eye, right? So that would be a challenge. What is another question is, wouldn't modern technologists and veterinarians who work in bird sanctuaries where injured birds are brought in to be rehabilitated, to be healed, rehabilitated, and let back out into the wild, wouldn't they have seen something like this in the birds that they work with? Yet no one has documented it. So we really need to take this story and go, what is the value of it? The value of this story isn't so much that what Ignaz says he saw, and even his uncles said, how could an 11-year-old boy have, he didn't have tools, he was working with a wild bird, how would he arrive at this? How could he have seen this? We had no way of documenting what he saw. But what I love is that whatever Ignaz thought he saw, he later went on to become a medical doctor. And he was so intrigued by his experience with the owl, whatever that was, that he started drawing his patients' eyes with colored charcoals, and he started writing out their stories. And he started noticing that people who had this symptom had this kind of a marking in their eye. They had this kind of a problem, they had a marking over here in their eye. And so he began some of the modern day research, 200 years ago, modern day research to lay the foundation for one of the earliest modern iridology maps. So from that perspective, we are so, so excited that he did that. Then we have Pastor Nils Lillquist. So he's in Sweden, and he correctly identified that if you had a lot of fiber threads in your eye, you were more resilient physically. You could ward off disease more easily. If you had an illness or an injury, you would recover much more quickly than if you had lots of gaps in the fiber of your eye. Now, he also said that he felt pigments like this, and even this yellow in this eye, and this little patch of pigment here, were the result of toxic exposure to a sulfur drug or to something, and that you should be able to cleanse that out. Well, we now know that that is not true. We now know that these pigments are genetically determined, and they teach us about organs that want to struggle and that organs that want to put stress onto other organs, right? Then we have Pastor Emanuel Felka. Did you know that in Germany you have to be a Heilpraktiker or a medical doctor? So a Heilpraktiker would be similar to a North American board certified naturopath, or again, or a medical doctor in order to practice iridology. It's a regulated science in Germany and in Russia. So, it's held in pretty high regards. Manuel Falca also did research. It's interesting that many of the early researchers were pastors and medical doctors. And he also helped design one of the earliest iridology maps, which was remarkably similar to what Ignaz came up with. Very interesting. We have Rudolf Schnabel, also in Germany. Look at these dates. I mean, these are all a long time ago, right? Well, maybe 1952 isn't so long ago. That's not that long before I was born. He researched pupillary pigment. So whether it's the wash that we see here, or the oranges, or the browns, or the yellows, or these tan colors, he was also one of the first people to use a microscope to examine the iris. He wanted to get up close and personal to see the detail. And he said this, I love this. He said it was no easy task, and those who believe or would like to believe that handling iridoscopy, that's what they used to call iridology, can be learned within a few weeks or even days are mistaken and do a disservice to a good cause. I agree with this. Iridology is not something you learn in a weekend. It's not something you can learn easily from a book. To learn all the nuances and the interactions, that takes practice, that takes being mentored, that takes having someone look over your shoulder to assess what you're doing and to give you guidance. Joseph Angerer, also in Germany, all this fantastic research happening in that Central European area. He studied with Angerer and Schnabel. Now, he knew that students were reading books and accepting whatever was in print as being absolutely gospel true. But he also knew that some of what was in print wasn't accurate. It was being disproved already. And so he refused to publish any of his work until it had been analyzed by his professional peers. Love that integrity. So, so good. I think this Joseph Deck, he looks like a 1950s movie star, in my opinion. He could be right up there with, oh, I don't know, Humphrey Bogart, or I'm thinking of another one and it escapes me. I love black and white movies. Okay, so Joseph Deck was a dedicated iridology researcher, and he also pioneered photography, iridology photography, and he taught iridology. Cary Grant, that's who I was thinking of. Theodore Kriege said, and this is still an important one, I hope that a later generation will succeed in establishing a single uniform system. In spite of zealous efforts, these have not so far succeeded. And so he studied with Unger, Deck, and Schnabel. He felt that iridology was a really powerful assessment tool, that it was probably one of the best, but that it was also beneficial to back it up with other assessment tools. So he suggested using urine assessment, hands, fingernails, tongue, feces, to put it all together to get a really good understanding of what your client's body was doing and what it was capable of. We are still trying to create that one uniform style, that one language of iridology, just getting it all together. We haven't succeeded in that yet. Then we have Bernard Jensen. How many of you have heard of Bernard? If you have, give me Dr. Jensen or Bernard, something like that, in the chat box. Let me know if you've heard of him. This is him on the right. We love Bernard. We love Bernard. In spite of the fact that a lot of what he used and taught are things that have been disproved, we love him because he single-handedly kept iridology alive in North America through the Cold War years when there was no research coming over from Russia or Germany. He kept it alive. Oh, we love that. We love that. And he did so much good for so many people with the work in his Hidden Valley Ranch in Escondido. We just love so much that he did such good work. In 1980 and beyond, Harry Wolff got his hands on an original book from Joseph Deck. Now, Harry was an American-born German, so he spoke and read German fluently. This book by Joseph Deck was in German. As Harry was studying this, it's like, oh my goodness, this stuff made sense. So he started teaching what he was learning from the Joseph Deck books. He eventually connected with Bill Cardona, who was at the time a registered pharmacist, and they started teaching iridology, Joseph Deck style, all over North America in little weekend workshops, which we now know not quite enough, but it was a great start. Bill went on to become a naturopath, and Harry and Bill were the original founding fathers of what is now the International Iridology Practitioners Association. Now, I started studying iridology in 1979, but here in Canada, where I live, we didn't have constitutional yet. We only had the Jensenian style. In the early 1990s, I was blessed to connect with Harry and Bill, mostly with Bill. And Bill became my constitutional teacher and mentor. And I give him all the credit for bringing me up to speed on constitutional and helping me to become confident with what I could do with the constitutional iridology. And I'm still in touch with Bill and Harry, and I'm so appreciative of that. So why does iridology work? You already know some of this. The eyeball is the largest neural receptor in the body. The iris itself has 28,000 nerve endings, and we only know what some of them do. We don't know what most of them do. The eyeball develops embryologically at the same time the brain develops. And so if there is some kind of something not quite the way it should be, that's maybe the wrong way to say it. If there's something developing in the body, the brain will know about it. And there will be a concurrent something show up in the iris. We just need to know how to interpret what the eyes are telling us. We know that that when we see these markers, different types of markers in the iris, that they are inherent potentials. It's not a guarantee of a problem, right? This whole new concept of epigenetics, that how we treat our body with food, with nutrition, with stress, with supplements, with the air we breathe, the water we drink, the amount of sleep we get, it turns genes on and off. The eyes show us what we're capable of, positive and negative, but what we do with that will determine what our symptoms are and will help us to either turn on or turn off responses. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a make sense in the comments box. So how are you doing with this? How are you doing with this? Any questions so far? In just a minute, we're going to hop into doing some iris analysis. You'll see again how this works a little bit. But first, I'm so glad this is all making sense. So good, so good, so good. But before we do that, I want to just jump in here. Now, the next session of dynamic iridology starts on Thursday. There's still some space in there. So if you're thinking, yeah, I want to learn iridology, I'm ready to do this, and you've got college level anatomy and physiology, maybe you're a registered nurse or physical therapist or a naturopath where you had to take a separate A&P course, maybe you're a medical doctor, a dental hygienist, a massage therapist, or maybe in your herbal training or nutrition work, you had to do an anatomy and physiology course as a part of that training, then this dynamic iridology assessment system is good. You've got what you need to come into this. And so registration is still open. We take them right up to the last minute and even a few days after that, except I'm going away for a few days. Because for those of you who are in the US, you might not know, in Canada, we have a long weekend on July 1st. You have Independence Day on July 4th. We have Canada Day on July 1st. So I'm going to get some vacation time here. But we can do a late registration if we need to. At any rate, still some time to get into this. The dynamic iridology assessment system is the only live, online, fully mentored course for people who have an anatomy and physiology course, college level, under their belt already. If you're currently working with clients, it's highly likely that what you might be doing is you see your clients, you gather all kinds of information, you take that information off and you spend a couple of hours assessing it, analyzing, putting together a report, a protocol, recommendations to bring back to your client at another appointment. What if you could stop spending those hours doing all of that report writing and protocol creation? What if you could actually create meaningful programs in under an hour while you were actually with your client and cut out all that homework time? How would that feel? What would that do for you? Would it be beneficial? How many of you are doing your program creations outside of your client time? For those of you who are actually working with clients. If you are, you can send that to me privately if you don't want other people to know. I will tell you, I used to do that. I used to do that all the time. And it's not a good way to practice business. I will guarantee you that. If you want to learn more than just iris markers, if you actually want to learn how to integrate iridology with what you already do, or if you're just moving into being a holistic practitioner, if you want to learn how to use iridology in the practice that you're setting up with nutrition or herbs or whatever you're using, then this program is for you. Absolutely. And so, again, just encouraging you. I'm going to give you a link later on that you can actually speak with me about the course so we can talk about whether it's a good fit for you or not. Let's do an assessment here. You good with that? If you want to see an iris assessment, give me iris in the chat box. We've got 3 assessments, I think, on chat. Andrea wants to see one, and so does Tiffany. Excellent, excellent. And Rose, fantastic, brilliant. Yeah, excellent, good. It's always good to know that I haven't put you to sleep. Thank you for that. All right, so this is a client. She's a 2nd generation client for me. I took care of her mom when her mom was was conceiving this child and had this young woman, and now I get to take care of this child. And actually, I've seen so many people from this family. Okay, so I'm just remembering who she is. So she's what we consider to be lymphatic, which means she's got basic blue eyes. Yes, she's got other colors in her eye, but her constitution is lymphatic. She is also polyglandular. Now, what that means is she has quite a few of these leaf and petal shapes in her eyes, and they are attached to this ring that we call the collarette. She is also anxiety tetanic. What that means is we have wrinkles in her eye that go around, and we have some lines that radiate outwards. Okay, so I'm just going to point out a whole bunch of features here, and then we're going to tie things together. This ring that comes around here is really tight. It's pretty close to her pupil. How does all this work? Well, this suggests an increased risk of constipation and poor energy or low energy production. Increased risk of, note that I said increased risk of, because the next thing I need to do is I need to ask her, how is her energy and what are her eating habits, right? Because she might be eating a really excellent diet and she might have learned that she needs to take care of her digestion and her whole intestinal tract from top to bottom. And that might make it so she doesn't have an energy problem, right? So we need to ask questions. The polyglandular, again, inherited. And that suggests that she is predisposed to hormonal risks. And so I need to ask her about her hormones. I want to ask her about her menstrual cycle. I want to ask her about her thyroid. I want to ask her about her pancreas, her adrenals, her reproductive hormones. And so I'm not going to say, well, gee, how's your thyroid? She may not know. I may need to ask, do you find that you're chilly when everybody else is comfortable? How's your hair? Is it feeling brittle? Do you feel like you're losing a lot of hair? Pancreas, is your energy a bit of a roller coaster ride through the day? Do you crave carbohydrates? We need to ask our clients the questions in language that they'll understand. Now, she personally tends to have a very low basal body temperature, which does suggest potential for hypothyroid. And she and her husband were struggling to get pregnant. She did conceive once and had a miscarriage. She got a really clean diet, organic food from scratch, really conscientious. And so what we see with all of this is that polyglandular, the central heterochromia has a bit of orange in it, which suggests, again, more pancreas. So we've got polyglandular for pancreas. We've got the slight orange tinge for pancreas. We know she's a little bit prone to lymphatic stagnation, prone to it, but she's physically active. So her lymph is not going to be stagnant. But again, she's got a clean diet and an active lifestyle. She's at a good body weight. And so constitutionally, her irides suggest a bit of a predisposition towards leaky gut. I can't diagnose that. I can't run any kind of a lab test or a scope to see if that's what she's got. But the eyes suggest that that could be something that's going on there. Again, her diet's good. She's got no other symptoms. There's nothing that is overtly inflammatory. So I'm not going to worry about that one. In this area, it looks like someone took little scissors and snipped the edge of her iris. And so that suggests that she may not break her proteins down very well, her dietary proteins. So I may need to teach her to chew her food better. I might need to suggest that she not drink fluids with her meals if she's doing that. I might want to add some supplements to help. Both of her ovary reaction fields have fibers that are running sideways through them. So, and we know that she has scarred fallopian tubes. Now, the errant fibers could suggest challenges with the ovaries, which we think might be the issue here. But the scarred fallopian tubes are not going to show up in the iris. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we cannot see scarring of a tissue as an iris marker? Because it happened later. Yeah, it wasn't a genetic thing. Her parents didn't give her that. It was something that happened later for whatever reason. So, really good. So good. So good. So, again, we need to have the conversation. What are her symptoms? What does she want help with? What's her diet and lifestyle? What are her eyes? How does that all combine? And from there, what do we need to ask her? So, in her first appointment, we got her onto a really good prenatal vitamin that had methylated Bs in it because I suspect from her eyes that she probably has the MTHFR defect. Okay. And I love that prenatal vitamin because it's got such a good complement of Bs. I like the one from Designs for Health personally for my clients. We also use some N-acetylcysteine with her. Right? And acetylcysteine helps with phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox. Now, I haven't said she is toxic. I haven't said she needs a cleanse, but I know when we're working with fertility issues and I see any indication of that risk of hormone, that I'm going to need to support the liver because the liver takes the carbs, turns them into cholesterol. Cholesterol is a building block for the hormones. When the hormones have done their job, the liver needs to denature them so they can be sent out through the urine, right? Added to the blood, the kidneys pull it out of the blood and send it out through the urine. So I know I need to do that with her. What if a person cannot tolerate sulfa? What are you using to detox? I would go into a herbal thing then. I would hand pick something herbal. Now, N-acetylcysteine, yeah, so I would, there's other things we can do. There's a whole raft of herbal things that we can do to detox the liver, and I would just choose it specifically for the individual. I also suggested that she increase her healthy protein. Now, they like bison and fish and wild game, so that was easy. And I wanted her to increase her omega-3s as well. Good question there, Yana. Good question. All right, so here we have a woman. This is the hematogenic eye. So this is a true brown eye. She's in her mid-50s. And I honestly, I felt so badly. She came in and she said, "Do you remember me?" And I had to say, "No, honestly, I can't say that I do." And she said, "Well, about 20 years ago, I had a sinus problem and I came to you and you fixed it in one appointment. So I'm back to have you help me fix this other problem." And her problem was that she was having hot flashes. She had tried hormone replacement therapy for a few years and it was not being effective. So when we see the hematogenic eye type, we know that their key area of focus is going to be liver. Now, she has her diet fairly well figured out, and she's got a very holistic lifestyle. So she's eating, organic foods cooked from scratch. She exercises regularly. She's careful with her stress levels. She's a social worker, And so she has control of her calendar. If she's got a client that she knows is particularly challenging, she'll book that day very light, right? And so she's really aware of much of what she needs to do. When I look at her eyes, I see a couple of things. The first one is that these rings coming around here with these lines radiating outward tell me that she burns through her B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium very quickly, that she responds often in that sympathetic way, right? And so again, I need to ask, how do you handle stress? What is your diet like? Because even a good diet can have foods in it or substances in it that can mess up how your body handles stress. And again, the other direction was that she's got a lot, her eyes brown, right? And that says liver. So I needed to find out, does she have any issues digesting fats? Liver holds on to anger, bitterness, resentment. Does she hold a grudge? And she said she didn't. She's got enough training that she knows how to work that through. So I asked her about her diet, and her diet was really good, except for one thing. Anyone want to guess what the one thing was she was doing that was getting in the way of her getting rid of hot flashes? One thing. Oh, Tiffany's such a good guess at sugar. That wasn't her problem. Andrea, it was coffee. It was coffee. Tiffany, sugar is often a problem. It wasn't for this person, but it was coffee. And so she would drink 1 cup of Turkish coffee a day. Now, I have no idea what Turkish coffee is, but she's Lebanese. So it was 1 cup of Turkish coffee every day. So I don't believe in trying to bully or, beat my clients into doing what's right for their body, what's best for their body. So I asked her, would you be willing to do an experiment? Would you be willing to give up the coffee for 10 days and then see how you do, and then reintroduce it and let's see what happens? And she said, yeah, she could do that. So she did the experiment. She came back in for a follow-up and I said, how did it go? She said, it's interesting. When I took the coffee away, we got, Yana says that's like having 5 espresso shots. Oh my flippin' heck. So she was really downing the caffeine. Holy doodle. Okay. Just having one of these a day. That's all, just one. Oh my goodness. Thanks for letting me know that, Yana. And so she came in and she said, yeah, when I didn't have the coffee, it wasn't a hot flash every hour. It was maybe a couple of little warm waves every day. I could totally live with that. I said, so what have you decided to do? And she said, well, I don't eat sugar. I don't eat refined carbs. I have an active lifestyle. I eat a lot of vegetables. I eat good proteins. I don't drink, so much is good. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I get sleep. And I love my coffee. I'm going to keep drinking the coffee. Is there anything you can do to help me if I do that? And I said, no. I have nothing that can override the caffeine and what the caffeine is doing to your adrenal glands, especially your adrenal glands. And then, we can tie that into how the liver is working with this. And we know the liver's not handling it well. We see some issues here, something here that says liver doesn't want to handle this at all. And it's like, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. We can try a good methylated B vitamin with you, but I don't think it will be enough. I said, I'm sorry, there's just nothing that can counteract that, really. Can you reduce it? Can you drink it every other day? Can you keep it down to just on Sundays? Is there anything you can do? And she wasn't willing to do it. And so as we parted from that appointment, I said, I'm here to help you if ever you need anything else, or if you decide to give up the coffee and you need support with something, please come back. The door is not slamming shut behind you. It's just I have nothing that will counteract the coffee, right? It made me very sad because I knew she knew that it would help her. She'd proven it to herself. She's an adult. She makes her own choices, right? My job is to educate and love. Their job is to decide how they want to manifest their health, what impact they want to have, right? And that's okay. That's okay. Center with love, kept the door wide open. Oh, do I not have another one in here? I thought I had three. I don't have three. I guess I only have two. That's all right. Unless there's another one in a minute. Just let me see. Can't tell you. We'll have to see. I thought I'd looked at these closer than this. So how do we use iridology then? We use it to gain insight, to guide our questions, to create rapport. If you're working with a client and you can look at their eyes and point to a specific indicator in the eye that gives you information about what they're experiencing and tie those two together, rather than asking a shotgun pattern of questions, that creates rapport, right? It tells your client you heard what they said and you are working with what they want. And that's critically important too. Doctors don't have the time to do that. Preventive care through learning about their predispositions. Andrea, that is an incredibly succinct way of describing this. Thank you for that. That is brilliant. We also, when we're doing this, we are building their protocols step by step. When the client comes in, like when you go and you write that big report, you're giving that client everything they need to know for the rest of their life or the foreseeable future. And that gives them more information usually than they can handle, more than they can work with. And so if they feel overwhelmed, what's going to happen? How well will they be able to follow all of those 17 instructions that you've just written in that report? Right. So with iridology, non-compliance, yes, Tiffany, non-compliance, absolutely. Why would they start? They're just going to fail. There's too much to do there. But if you can look at this, and like I did with that one client, I didn't even suggest a liver support. I just said, can we experiment with the coffee? Would I have liked her to have more vegetables? Yes. Would I have liked her to have more omega-3? Yes, eventually. But if I could get her to do this one thing and do it well, and we could get those hot flashes down to warm waves, then we can get rid of the warm waves over the next few appointments by fine-tuning the program in manageable steps. And as we get the results, we earn more trust, right? And Andrea, I love this. She says, so true. Discuss a realistic goal, coaching them through their process, holding their hand, walking side by side with them, shoulder to shoulder, whatever, however you want to describe that. I don't want it to be that I'm talking down to my client, but I want them to know that I am an ally and a mentor and a coach to help them reach their health goals, right? And that's why I love teaching iridology in this way, is because we actually practice in the scope of the course how to create logical sequential progressions of you'd start here, and then next appointment you would do this. And if they're doing things well and they're seeing changes and they're getting results, next appointment you would do this. Oh, they didn't have so much success there. What do we need to backtrack? What do we need to go back and tweak so our client can get better results? So we're doing it step by step. It's also why I love teaching health professionals, right? Doing iridology this way helps us to gain insight into what our clients need help with. It guides our questions, which helps us create rapport, helps us to go deeper with our clients. And there's that rapport thing. It informs our recommendations. And it helps us create those doable sequences of recommendations to enhance client success. So important. Oh, so important. And, you know, again, and I'm certainly not bashing doctors here. I don't want anyone to think that I'm doing that. We need doctors. There's times and places where we absolutely need doctors. I don't know what the medical situation is like where you're at. Here where I'm at, we have a doctor shortage. About 40% of people here do not have a dedicated family practitioner. They're using walk-in clinics. Yana says, same here. Yeah, there you go. And so what it means is that if they go to a walk-in clinic, they're getting urgent care, they're getting something immediate taken care of, but they're not getting long-term care. The doctors in the walk-in clinics won't even run like a thyroid panel because they're not going to be the one to follow up with you, right? And so people are being left hanging. If they've got a family practitioner here, the doctor lets you talk about one problem in an appointment. You might have 4 things. You get to talk about one today. And if you want to talk about the other 3, you book an appointment tomorrow and the next day. And the next day, you come back 4 times to talk about those 4 problems. When we do iridology this way, and we take about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes in that first appointment, we can gradually get faster. Our clients have time to tell us what they want us to hear. We have time to hear it. We have time to assimilate it, put it all together, and begin creating the protocol. Critically important. I have so many clients that have been with me for decades who I could do their appointments easily in 15 or 30 minutes. They actually won't let me. They book a full hour every time, even though they are paying for it out of pocket. And I've asked them, why do you do that? And they say things like, because you're the only person who listens. My doctor gives me like 7 minutes if he's running on time, but you give me an hour. You hear what I'm saying, you hear the stresses, you hear the challenges, and you create programs I can work with. So that's what we are here for, right? That is what we are here for, is to create that educational process, that mentored process to help our clients achieve the health results that they want to have. Now, if this is sounding like something you would like to experience, I've put a link in the chat box for you to schedule a one-on-one to speak with me about learning iridology. You know, whether it's the June course or not, it's irrelevant. But if you've got the anatomy and physiology under your belt already, and you're interested in learning iridology, let's talk. Let's see if it really is a good fit for your goals, for what you want to do, where you want to go. And we'll talk about when is the right start date for you. Okay. Rose is saying the primary doctors in Oregon are hard to find. Many are going into retirement. Yeah. And it's unfortunately, well, for us, fortunately, for the time being anyways, that means that as holistic practitioners, we are going to be seeing more and more people because they don't have access to medical care. They'll be using urgent care for urgent things, and we may have to be pushing clients that direction. I think you need to go to the hospital right now, or go to an urgent care right now, or a walk-in clinic right now. Yana says in Oregon, there are a lot of great naturopaths. Yes, there are. There are indeed. Okay, so with that, any other questions? Anything else that I can share with you today? I apologize that I only had 2 cases in there. I thought I had 3. Well, the very first one, we'll count that as a case as well. So we did 3 of different kinds. That's very cool. Any questions? There are some call times left for tomorrow. So if you are thinking that maybe, yeah, you just want to jump right in for the June 27th start date, or you want information on that, grab that link and grab one of those call times for tomorrow. Let's talk. Let's see if it is a good fit. And it's not, I trust me, it's a very relaxed conversation. It's not a thumb screws, gun to the head kind of thing. We don't do that here. And so Andrea says, thank you. Such great information in such a short time. You are welcome, Andrea. I look forward so much to having you in a course very soon. I know we've chatted about that. And I hope you all have a great week. And, you know, if you're in Canada, happy Canada Day. If you're in the US, I know that's not till next Thursday. Our next mini class like this will be on the Friday of next week, just to give you guys time to have a holiday. And yeah, so I won't speak to you before Independence Day. So happy 4th of July for those of you who are in the States. And if you're somewhere else in the world, just have a great week. And we will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye for now.